In this video, we're going to cover a few more commands in our modifiers. So here you can see that I've drawn two rectangles and a construction line. Okay, so you can see that the construction line basically goes out to infinity. Now, we're going to start with the Align tool, and what the Align tool does is it allows us to line objects to each other. So with this, in conjunction with this, we're going to be using the object track, or snap tracking, and that's one of your drafting settings. So you may notice that object snap tracking is on automatically by default, and it allows you to take the grips and to use them without, in order to make it easier to snap to other objects. So what that means is that when I type in Align, for example, for the Align tool, okay, I'm going to select my objects. So I'm going to select this object and I'm going to align it to the rectangle above. So I'm going to click on it. Okay, or I can select it using my selection tools, you know, either the green selection box or the blue selection box, and I'm going to hit enter. And then it's going to ask me to specify a first source point. So that's the point that you want to align to the other object. So with my object snap tracking on, and if it's not on, you can toggle it with the function 11 key. I'm going to, and you notice that my endpoint pops up, and that's because I always work, you know, probably 99% with my object snaps on. And so I'm going to ensure the precision of this by making sure that my endpoint is being snapped to, and I'm going to snap to that with my object snap settings on. So if I mouse over my endpoint and I snap there, okay, you'll see what pops up, and what appears is this green dashed line. And that's your object snap tracking. And what that does is it allows, you know, an extra set of precision. You know, maybe I don't have my ortho on, but I want to make sure that I am moving it orthogonally. That's basically what it ensures. So what I can also do is I can not only move things along an orthogonal plane, okay, or dimension or degree, okay, but I can also snap to, or mouse over really, over this other point, and I can bring that down, and it's going to figure out where the point of intersection is using this object snap tracking. Okay, so I find it's a command that I actually use quite often, because if I track this down to mouse over that and just move my mouse down and track it over there and click, okay, I'm going to specify that second source point and hit enter, and that's when these two are going to align with each other. Now, as I said, I can also take both of these and just using my regular snaps, I can snap it from this endpoint, and then I can snap them to that construction line. Okay, so again, it's just taking both of these, typing in Align, selecting these objects, hitting enter, specify the first source point, which is my endpoint, specify the destination point, which is I have my perpendicular on to my construction line, click on that, hit enter, and then they're going to align to that construction line. Another tool in the terms of modifying your objects is to consider the grips. So when we click on an object to select it, what appears are little blue boxes. Those are known as grips. So we can use these grips in order to move and stretch and modify an object. So I can click on a grip and I can stretch it. Okay. In some cases, so for example, if I have a circle, there will also be a grip that shows up in the middle, and that'll allow me to move it. The grips are typically located at the endpoints and midpoint of an object with a singular line, etc. But as we see with the circle, we'll also notice that there's one in the center too, as well, as we saw for moving it. When you have a square grip in the middle of the object, that's the indicator for moving the object. So if you have a square grip on the endpoints, you know, the 4 points of the circle, let's say, you can click on that grip and stretch it. So basically, these grips are for stretching. Okay, and then that center one is for moving. So for lines and rectangles, the grip will stretch the object. For the circle, it does stretch the object, but it essentially also scales the circle proportionally without distorting it. So you're not going to get the same distortion as the rectangle will have when you stretch the grips of the rectangle. So in AutoCAD 2011, what they introduced was a more advanced feature for using the grips in AutoCAD. So you'll see with polygons, okay, so if I focus on my polygons here, okay, a grip will, and a polygon is a multi-segmented sided object. It could be a rectangle, it could be an octagon, it could be a pentagon, so on and so forth. So a grip will show up in the center of this segment, okay? And what this does, it gives you more options for modifying this object. So if I mouse over, you can see if I mouse over the endpoints, okay, it'll give me stretch vertex, add vertex, remove vertex. These are essentially these advanced grip features that they've introduced into these grips starting in 2011. So this center one, if I mouse over it, it will give me a little bit different options. So it gives me stretch, it gives me add vertex, and it gives me convert to an arc. So what happens is that a lot of times you have, you know, a four-sided object, okay, and you want to start to manipulate it more. But in the past, the only way to do that was to redraw it. So what I can do now is I can actually go to add vertex, and I can create more vertices and make a custom object. That was stretch. Add vertex. Add vertex. And what I can also do is I can convert these lines to arcs. So that's the other option here too as well. You can see I'm starting to kind of play around with it a little bit. Okay, and then if I mouse over those end grips, okay, it'll also allow me to remove vertices. So if I want to turn this into a singular segment, okay, I can remove vertices and that'll straighten it out again. In designing more freeform, a lot of times we want to move away from just drawing lines. So we can actually create curved lines in the form of splines. So splines are a really great tool when you need to draw customized curves. They can also be stretched and adjusted when using the grips, and you can also edit a spline with the spline edit command for additional vertices, etc. And you can also, as we talked about before, we can join polylines and splines into one object by using the pedit command and using the join option. So like how we used pedit last week, we can also edit splines using the pedit. So just to show you quickly, if I type in SPL or spline or splines are up in your draw menu. Okay, they're the second one in, or the first one in. It depends on how you're actually going to draw it, either with control points or with fit points. Okay, and if I type in SPL, it'll ask me to specify my first point. So it acts just like a line. So when I start to enter my next point, and then I keep doing it, okay, you can see that I can essentially create a curved line, and then when I'm done, I can say C for close, and it'll close my object. Okay, and then when I click on it, you can see that there's, again, these different grips that I can start to play with. And now you'll start to see that stretch fit points, this is a type of spline that you can add. So this is with the fit points, and then if I draw with the CVs, okay, the control vertices, that's going to be a different way, in that if we look at the construction of it, okay, we can see this, the fit points sit right on the spline. If I select the spline created with the control vertices, okay, you can see that there's these external points that you would select in order to modify it. Also, another command is the divide command, and we can start to take objects and divide them into pieces. So for example, if I want to, let's say, create like a pizza in a way, okay, I have this circle, and I'm going to divide it into 8 segments. So I'm going to type in div for divide, select my object to divide, so I'm going to click on my circle, and then I'm going to type in 8 for 8 segments, and then nothing happens, okay? And that's because what the divide command does, okay, if I select my object, it's still a whole object, okay? The divide command does not physically separate the object, but what it does is it puts these points that are located on the object, indicating if you were to divide that object into 8 parts, okay, as we did with the circle, where would they be? Okay, and the reason why we can't see those points is that they're too small. So the way that we can adjust this is if we type in DDP type Okay, you can see that that point style, the default is this tiny little dot. Okay, I typically use this circle with the cross through it and then hit OK, and now you'll see that they pop up. Okay, so again, it doesn't physically divide the object, okay, but it places these nodes on the object, okay, or these points. And so now what I can do is I can draw a line and I can snap to those nodes. Now keep in mind that you can't snap to the nodes until and unless your node is selected in your object snaps. So that now I can draw a line diagonally and make it look like it's a pizza, and then I can delete the nodes after the fact.